So, recently on this channel I built the Alsace from World of Warships. And even though building naval vessels isn't an entirely new subject to me, World War II era battleships, that's a completely different league. So I think it's fair to say that I am still kinda new to this. And with every ship I build, I am learning new stuff. And usually I learn the hard way. And so did I with the Alsace. Which is why I decided to implement some of those lessons I have learned on a new ship. A ship which is very similar to the Alsace, the Flandre. I would even say they are about 95% similar, at least when it comes to the model. This allows me to reuse a lot of stuff. But for now, let's just get into comparing those two ships. I have prepared a side and a top view of both ships side by side. They look very similar, don't they? The superstructure indeed is 100% identical. That means I can just take all of this and reuse it in my new project. And then there are also the 152mm guns, which are completely identical. So let's just take them as well and bring them over to my new project. Perfect. But this is where the similarities stop. Well, I can still reuse some of the secondary rangefinders, but that's it. All of the big rangefinders do have some differences. I cannot reuse the main guns. The secondary guns are completely different, and I can't even reuse the hull. Why is that, you might wonder? The reason is that this midship section here has been shortened from 19.9 meters on the Alsace to 15.9 meters on the Flandre. In freedom units that would be roughly 65 and 52 feet accordingly. What I can reuse, however, are most of the details on the deck, which is what I am going to do right now. So let's take all of those and bring them over to our new project. So earlier you heard me say something about learning from my mistakes and implementing improvements. To be honest, on the Flandre there's only one major change I made. And that is the railing on the hull. The Alsace, or at least the model that I printed, doesn't have one. And I didn't include it on purpose. Back then I saw a few options. Number 1, print the hull with the railing in place. Number 2, print the hull without a railing and add it later on. I, however, decided to do neither of it, which is the third option. This can be attributed to laziness, because after 2 weeks working on this model in Blender, I just wanted to get it over with. I also wanted to spare myself the pain of later adding on a railing to the hull. But not this time. The only question is, how good can I make it look? Well, you will have to stick around and see. And now it is time to bore you with endless footage of me sanding down the parts. Just kidding, not this time. This is the color scheme that I chose for the Flandre. And while I show some footage of it getting painted, I want to take the time to address one issue that's getting brought before me again and again. Can I share the STL files for this? The answer is, I would very much like to, but I'm a little bit hesitant about this. What I do with most of my videos is considered fan art. It's not my own intellectual property. And I don't want to infringe on anyone's IP. If Wargaming one day decides that they don't like me making this kind of content and they want me to take these videos down, I'm not gonna fight them over it. It is their intellectual property and they have the right to gatekeep. Some time ago, however, I reached out to Wargaming asking them what their policy was about sharing STL files, specifically STL files of models from some of their games. They did even come back to me, but their answer wasn't really precise. They neither permitted nor denied the sharing of STL files. So I'm left hanging in this state of uncertainty. And as long as I don't have clarity on this matter, I'm not going to share the files. But for now, back to the topic at hand. After airbrushing the lower section of the hull with red, I removed the masking tape, expecting the worst. Imagine my surprise when the result looked that clean. This is something that I have never managed to do before. Usually the paint would find some small gap between the masking tape and the model, and then it would get really messy. But apparently not this time. And here we come to painting the deck, with a basic brown color, using the smallest brush I could possibly find. And there is actually a reason for that, because I wanted to carefully paint around all of the details on the deck. But in later stages I painted over them anyway, so that was kinda unnecessary. And this base coat doesn't have to cover everything. As you can see that there are still some spots of grey and blue that shine through. But after that I took one step that was not really necessary. Or let's just say it didn't really help much. And that is this dry brushed coat of this earth-like color. Why was it unnecessary, or why didn't it help much? Because I ended up painting over it. So I could have saved myself the effort. So let's not forget, all of this was just an experiment. I had no idea how it would turn out. After the deck was painted, it's time to add on all the other stuff. The secondary guns, the AA, the primary guns, the superstructure, and so on. I didn't include the assembling and painting of those parts because I have already shown them in the Alsace video. And I didn't want to show stuff that could be considered redundant. But if you're interested, just watch the video on the Alsace. Now to the arrangement of the lifeboats, which is of course, as we all know, a major selling point for a battleship. Even though the Alsace and the Flandre are almost identical, the arrangement of the lifeboats, however, is different. Imagine you want to sell a new battleship to a government, which is almost identical to the previous batch, but you want to charge 25% more money. Just make the argument that the arrangement of the lifeboats is different and the government will happily buy it from you. For the higher price, of course. Adding the railing to the ship was more difficult than I anticipated. I printed the parts way too thin and they were extremely hard to handle. It took me way longer than I had hoped to assemble the railing. But was it worth it? I leave it to you to judge on that. And when it comes to adding all of the last details, of course you cannot miss the benches. I still can't get over the fact that Wargaming added benches to the French battleships. Why would you even need them? Maybe it's for the officers to sit down and relax and watch the crew play a party of pool while sailing into the sunset. And that has been the Flandre. You can now see the finished model side by side with the Alsace. And when I look at these two ships, I can't help but think that the Alsace desperately needs an overhaul. The deck color is just way too unrealistic. And there are also some minor things like the missing railing or the missing seaplane. But what do you think? Does the Alsace need an overhaul? Let me know in the comments. And also let me know if you want to see a video about that. And for future ideas of ships that I should build, let me know in the comments as well. But please be patient with me, it takes a very long time to build one of those. But that should be it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to be back with another video very soon.